anybody has a problem with that, just go talk to Alan. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to the New York and New Jersey Foreign Freight Forwarders and Brokers Association, the longest name of any association, for this recognition, for receiving this award. I follow in the footsteps of many industry leaders. However, it's especially gratifying to follow the last three honorees, Roy Malfitano, Harold Daggett, and Dave Adams. All of whom I consider to be not only industry leaders and innovators, but are at the pinnacle in the world of labor relations. Having my family here is most special. My wonderful wife, Cheryl. She's the love of my life. She's put up with me in the life of being married to a maritime industry operations person for 38 years. There's got to be some type of award or Hall of Fame induction for that. My sons Joseph and Andrew are here. They tried to get me to do the Dwight Schrute salesman speech from The Office, but I wasn't having that. They're both in the industry, and I can see it's already in their blood. Also here is my wonderful daughter-in-law, Carissa, and Andrew's longtime girlfriend, Ariana. It's Ariana's birthday today. She thinks this is for her, but that's okay. Right? And to round it out, my sisters, Terry and Joanna here, and their spouses, Michael and Dan. Just some useful information for everybody. Terry is the only person who has ever knocked me unconscious, so please be careful not to piss her off. Right? Also gratifying to me is the timing of this award. There was no 2021 honoree, as you heard, as most events were shut down. The last time the industry convened to honor a person of the year was 2020. This was just a few short weeks before everybody's lives drastically changed. The Person of the Year award presented to Dave Adam in 2020 was the last significant industry event that took place when things were normal, right? That's from when I'd like to start my recap of why I'm standing in front of you and how we could never really have just one Person of the Year in this industry, and especially in the Port of New York and New Jersey. If we look back upon that time, the uncertainty and the anxiety that ran through the country was off the charts. And make no doubt about it, New York and New Jersey was the epicenter of the early stages of the pandemic. We were all told to flatten the curve of COVID cases so as not to overwhelm the healthcare system. Go home, shelter in place. The popular thinking back then was that if you contracted COVID, you were a goner. That was it. However, back then, everyone should shelter in place, except it is our industry. We quickly found out what essential workers were. We were essential workers. The wall-saw labor up and down the coast, and the employees of the terminal operators were told, while most everyone other than emergency personnel and healthcare workers should shelter in place, you need to keep working. You need to keep working to keep the flow of PPE into the country open. You need to work shoulder to shoulder to ensure the supply chain stays open to supply the foodstuffs and goods to those who are isolating or quarantining. Again, this was a time when a case of COVID was viewed as a death sentence. The workforce was afraid that they would contract the virus from each other, and the vessel crews. The vessel crews were afraid that they would contract it from the longshoremen. It was mayhem back then. Yes, it was nice that the livelihood of the people in industry was not impacted, but at what cost? How would we give the workforce the security that if you went to work, you would be in the safest environment possible, that you wouldn't get sick? What did we do? We did what we always do when we have a challenge in New York and New Jersey. We came together, and based on the mutual trust that we've developed here in this port, we collectively worked out solutions. You might ask, who came together? The NYSA, Susan Winfrey, Chuck Darrow, and the rest of my team. Our employer members and ocean carrier members. And just for reference, can the NYSA employer members and ocean carriers raise their hand here, please, so that people know who I represent? Raise your hand here. Don't embarrass. Everybody else. And who did we come together with? On the labor side, it was the International Longshoremen's Association, Harold Daggett and Dennis Daggett and their executive board. Then there was the United States Maritime Alliance, Dave Allen and Paul DiMaria. Paul, who said every time I mentioned his name, he'd give me $20. So Paul DiMaria. The Metropolitan Marine Contractors Association, Mr. Joe Ragusa, and Sam Ruda and Beth Rooney of the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, and their team. The ocean carrier members of the NYSA gave me carte blanche when it came to spending on safeguards and PPE. I called Harold and Dennis and said, "You will likely never hear me say this again, but cost is no obstacle." We were on the phone nearly every day talking through and agreeing on joint protocols and safety procedures to communicate with the workforce. All communication to the workforce had the logos of NYSA, ILA, and MMMCA on it so that there was no doubt who was sanctioning the protocols and no doubt that the labor and management were in agreement. Also, everyone I mentioned so far, plus the Port Authority, dug deep to purchase PPE and share with each other reliable sources who could supply PPE, which is in such short supply. I need to recognize two people, Bruce Fenimore of Columbia the Group, and Mike Stamatis of Red Hook. Somehow, these guys found PPE early on when no one else could. I don't want to know how you did it. This is New Jersey. I'm just thankful that you did. The Coast Guard and their area security team also held frequent calls, inclusive of all law enforcement and emergency personnel who touched the port, plus other members of the industry, including NYSA. These were some scary calls, especially when the NYPD and the New York City Fire Department and the state police of both states gave their updates about the number of emergency calls and hospitalizations. Also, the Council on Port Performance, which NYSA co-chairs with the Port Authority, met on a weekly basis via video. In addition to NYSA and the Port Authority, the balance of the council membership is made up of representatives of marine terminals, trucker associations, ocean carriers, chassis companies, the ILA, MMMCA, off-dock depots, BCOs, rail representatives, freight forwarders, right? Bill Skinner is on the CPP. NAIA, the Warehouse Association, Customs Examination Sites, Customs and Border Patrol, MARAD, the Ocean Carriers Equipment Management Association, the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, and we recently added the United States Coast Guard. This organization, which I co-founded with Rick Larrabee in 2014, was the perfect vehicle for a landlord port to tackle the challenges of COVID. And the best part was that this organization already existed, it was active, and it was ready to take on the challenges as we had done before. Each stakeholder representative would give an update on their link in the supply chain and the challenges they were facing. And where we could help each other, we did. Then there were the never-ever changing COVID safety guidelines, executive orders, legislation, dealing with unemployment, disability, pension guidelines. And keep in mind, in New York and New Jersey, for COVID, we had to deal with New Jersey state guidelines, federal guidelines, New York state guidelines, and New York City guidelines. And like I said, they were changing every day. It was crazy. I know it was one of the most stressful times in my career. Lives were on the line, and freight needed to keep moving. People did die. Long-time port workers, 8 longshoremen died from COVID, and we still mourn them. Workers did get sick. To date, out of 3,600 NYSA longshore workers, 2,300 of them had to quarantine at one time or another due to COVID, and 1,200 have tested positive. But we kept the supply chain open. The business was secure. Speaking of business, you will recall that volume in April 2020 and May 2020, it cratered, dove down. It was a scary time from a business and personal income perspective. Scarier now than the current challenges we face, I can tell you that. At one point, we had 1,000 longshoremen not working because of the volume being down here at this port. Then things began to change. In June, the volume ticked up. By September, we were handling more cargo on a year-over-year basis. And by November 2020, the tsunami of freight was upon us, and it hasn't let up yet. All ports are handling volume that if anybody told you, and I mean anybody, that we would be handling volume today that was forecasted for 5 years from now, they'd say, you'd be nuts. Hey, but really, think about it. At least now your friends and family are interested in what you do, right? Isn't that nice? I'm certain that everybody in this room has been worked to the brink of exhaustion over the past 2 years, more often than not. I'm not going to get into the challenges we all face today in the supply chain. We know what they are: congestion, labor shortages, increased costs, across the board inflation. It's been an incredible 2 years with incredible results from incredible people in an incredible industry. So what I'm going to do is turn this around. And because I know how much you all like to drink, I'm going to raise my glass. And I want you to raise your glass when I recognize. So if you work for a terminal operator, raise the glass. An ocean carrier, the International Longshoremen's Association, a port authority, a trucker association, a chassis company, a railroad, a labor management association, an off-dock depot, a BCO, an NVO, a warehouse operation, a government agency who touches our agency, legal counsel who supports our agency, insurance people, journalists who don't try and trash the Port of New York and New Jersey. And how about some freight forwarders? Do we have any freight forwarders and brokers here? And family members who've had to put up with all of you. I accept this award on behalf of all of you, because without every stakeholder, without every link in the supply chain doing their job, without our family support, we could never accomplish what we have done the past 2 years. And as Dwight Schrute said, we're warriors. Here's to us. God bless you all.